Good morning, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a project we got coming up. We're going to take rough sawn boards and turn them into car siding. There'll be Aspen boards and it'll be car siding for ceiling in my basement. So come along for the ride if you'd like to learn how to do this. Okay, here's the boards. I don't think it's going to be enough, but I cut these at the beginning of last summer. The moisture content in them right now is about 7%. It is the winter. I did not kiln dry these that just because I took the free air drying. I do have a kiln back behind all this where you see that blue styrofoam. Maybe we'll do a video on that someday. It works real good, but air drying is free, and Aspen dries so fast just through air drying that I primarily just do hardwoods in the kiln. So this is what the boards look like, okay? And you can see through the drying process, some of them are checked and cracked on the ends and bowed. So the first thing we got to do is get them to have at least one perfectly straight edge. And so we've got different lengths here. We've got a bunch of 8s and 9 footers, and then a bunch of, I think they're about 11 feet long. So the next step will be to take them off the pile and bring them over to the sawmill. And the sawmill, if it's set upright, will cut an edge straight enough for us. We'll cut one side and then we'll flip them over. And then we'll cut the other side and make our blanks for our car siding. Once both sides are edged, we'll move over to the planer and we'll rough them in with the planer. We've got a Woodmaster. Oh, back to this. These boards were actually cut on a Woodland Mills HM136. Because it's winter and it's nasty out, we're going to edge them on this 130 Max that I have set up in my shop. This is a brand new saw. So I don't normally saw in the shop, but this time of the year I'll throw the doors open, and that way I can stay out of the mud and the rain and everything, and the snow or whatever Mother Nature gives us. So once we have the blanks made, we'll go over to the Woodmaster 25-inch planer, and we'll rough them in on this. I turned the knives last night on this, so I got good sharp carbide teeth in here. I think there's 160 some of them, and we'll run it through there and we'll get them all roughed in. And once we have all the blanks made, then I've got this unit up here that's also from Woodmaster. It's a 3-sided molding head, and it has 2 Milwaukee routers on it, 1 tongue, 1 groove. And so you can do the finished planing and a tongue and groove all in one shot. So that's what the goal is. We'll be doing dust collecting, and we're going to make a lot of sawdust, but we'll walk you through it as we're doing it. Okay, so we're ready for this step. I already cut one side of these. When I cut them originally, they started out at 8 inches. But then through the drying process, the lumber shrinks this way some. I guess I got one oak one in there, but the oak will actually shrink more than like a pine will this way. But when all is said and done, I want 7-inch blanks. So I've got the saw set up to 7 inches now. I cut the first cut at 7 1/4. And so we'll go ahead and fire it up, and we'll take a 1/4 inch off of this. And then these blanks will be ready for the rough planing. So stay with it and enjoy the watch. hopefully, if everything was set up right, we have a bunch of blanks here, or the start of the blanks anyway. That are exactly 7 inches wide. So you can put kind of as many up there as you want. You can stack even more side to side. But this is kind of a nice manageable. What do I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I think I'll probably work with 10 from now on. The sharper your blade is, naturally, the more you can put in there. And you can see I took it pretty slow. But having said that, I took it slow because I really want to make nice straight cuts. I could have made that cut in half that time, and if I were sawmilling a oak log or whatever, I would move a lot faster because we're roughing. But this has to be a little bit precise. So we'll see what we got here. I don't know why I bother with that pail. Most of the sawdust is on the floor when it's light. So now we have 9 boards that are all nice and flat. If we look at the side, seven inches is where I wanted to be. Sorry for the shakiness. And now these boards will go on a sawhorse. We'll move another batch of 10 boards over here. We'll keep doing this until we've got the whole pile gone. So the next step in the process is to rough them in the planer. So I'm going to set the planer up and we're going to run them through and see what they look like. So here we go. So you heard the big clunking. What happened there was we had kind of a big knot, a crack in the end of the board, and the board broke off. And I don't know how big the chunk is, but it's laying down in there. And when it gets just right, it throws it up into the blade. So we're going to get it out of there before we go any farther. And then I'm going to watch it a little closer. If there's some of those bad spots, I wondered about that spot before I send it through. I'll just cut them off before I send it through. Now at least we have a bunch of blanks that are 7 inches wide. They're about 15, 16 thick. And now we'll whittle away at the other side a little bit. I can't take more than about an eighth of it. Like eighth of an inch is too much to take off in the final process. So I'll probably get them down to about 13 sixteenths. And then when they're the whole pile is that size, 7 inches wide, 13/16, planed on both sides. Then we'll set up the three-sided molding, which bolts right into the 725 Woodmaster planer. And then it's just one more pass it'll go through. You can see it's not very fast, but you're self-sufficient and it's kind of fun doing it. So we'll be back. We'll show you the rest of it. Probably do a time lapse on it. So bear with me. So here we are a couple days later. A buddy of mine came down and gave me a hand for a day. And we went through both stacks of wood that we had here. And what we've accomplished to date, you can see our setup as we're looking around. This was a stack of black oak, and that's not going to be used for the ceiling, but while we were doing it, with the long-term intention for that stuff is for tongue and groove on the walls in my shop here. So we decided to do that, but here's the Aspen for the ceiling, and where we stand right now is we have everything trimmed on the edges to 7 inches wide, and it's had one pass through the planer. You can see what's on top. This was some cherry that I did in another ceiling. This was just left over. But here's what the goal is to get all this Aspen molded in the shape of this cherry. Rays coming down again. And we're gonna take it through the planer to make it the right thickness. Most of this is about 1 inch thick right now, but it is flat on one side. And all the edges have been trimmed, so now it'll go fast. We'll bring it over to the Woodmaster 725. We'll run it all through on the other side, and then we'll probably run it one more time just to get it to the perfect thickness so that when we do start doing the three-sided molding, it doesn't have much to take off. So this planer has the spiral cutter head in it. So it's fairly quiet, and it leaves a really smooth surface. Hopefully you can see down in there. That's the spiral cutter head. Has 160 some teeth on it. So here we go. Well, we're back here. We're about a week later. we've gone through the molding, the sanding, and first coat of polyurethane. Now we're gonna sand it. In fact, I'm done with most of it, but we'll give you a show quick how we do this. It's probably pretty common to most of you that are thinking about doing this. You know how to finish wood, but I'll show you how I do it. So we put one coat of polyurethane. It's a warm satin Minwax, which for whatever reason I like Minwax. I'm not a real fan of the water base, even though it dries fast and it sands fast. I don't think it brings the true beauty of the wood out. It doesn't really soak in. We'll sand one board and varnish it, and then we'll go to a time lapse, and you can see me finish this out. So this is the end of the varnishing. So I like to use one of these 220 sponges. They last a long, long time. And they're easy to hang on to. Just give it a quick sand. It is a ceiling, it's not a piece of furniture, it doesn't have to be perfect. Then I feel with my hand as I go. Okay. And I like to blow it off with it here. We bring it over to the standing table, my makeshift rack where I can stack a whole bunch of boards. And I like using a sash brush for this because it's a little easier to get the tongue and the groove side of it. Well, I've always liked using a sash brush over a flat brush. All the air bubbles are worked out of it. Now, something interesting, I've done so many of these boards that it seems like if you're working with fresh wood, this already has one coat on it, so this isn't fresh, this has a finish on it. But if you're working with bare wood, you pick up a little light dust in your brush every time you brush it on, and that dust eventually ends up in your can, which I found interesting because when you get to the bottom of the can, it no longer has a nice shine. So I like to do my first coat with 1 gallon. And that's my seal coat. And then when I'm ready to put my finish coat on, I'll open another can and do all my finish with that can. That way I get a nice uniform finish. And it has, just a bit of a shine or luster to it. How I found that out was the beginning of one of my big batches. I went through a whole gallon, and the beginning boards were a little bit shiny when they dried, and the ones where I finished the gallon, they were just flat as could be. So I had to redo those so the finish all stayed the same. So I just simply pick this up, move it to the end of the rack, and go to the next one. Okay, so here is the finished boards. That represents sawing them down from storm damaged trees, letting them dry or getting them dry to under 8% moisture, then planing them, molding them, sanding them, staining them or varnishing them, polyurethane, sanding, varnishing, and so the next step will be down in making a ceiling out of them. So pretty happy with this Aspen. I kind of like the look of it. I've never done a major project with it. I've cut some here or there or for a beam or whatever, but there's some really cool character in it. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like on the ceiling. See you when we get started on that.